Everyone to the Larsonland podcast. I'm your host, Sawyer Hill, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Dylan Bradshaw. We come in here every single week and talk about all things involving the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series champion, Young Money, Kyle Larson. Dylan, I know we are a Kyle Larson focused page. Everything we kind of do is geared around Kyle Larson, but the big news of the week, before we get to Kyle's day at Martinsville, I think we have to talk about probably one of the greatest moves that we've seen in NASCAR history yesterday at Martinsville. Crazy move by Ross Chastain. I know I can't even count the amount of times that we have said the word unprecedented on this podcast this year with this next gen car. But what we saw yesterday was unprecedented, Dylan, because we've seen the wall ride move done before, but nobody's pulled it off with that level of success, and it brought Ross Chastain into a championship position next weekend at Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean, I think before that, all we really saw was Carl Edwards at Kansas in the battle with Jimmy Johnson, and that wasn't even really a wall ride, I would say. That was kind of him just driving a little deep, and he caught the wall. And then we had Larson at Darlington last year, battling with Hamlin, trying to get the win there. But like you said, he executed, and one of the best moves in NASCAR history, definitely playoff history. Just he threw his balls on the dash and he just sent it. I mean, just unreal. I watched the clip over and over. I'm sure most people did. Like the speed that he had. I mean, he was I think 2 seconds faster than Christopher Bell, the winner, than his lap. He was faster than Larson's pole on Saturday, fastest lap ever at Martinsville. In comparison to like qualifying time or whatever, but just insane speed around those turns.
Yeah, it was definitely it didn't even seem realistic. I mean, when NBC showed the replay of it initially, it almost looked like it kind of looked like Ross Chastain's car was being fast forwarded and everybody else was in slow motion because it just did not look like it was physically possible his car to go around the turns that quickly. I'll show a clip briefly here if you're watching on YouTube of the incident. I'm sure everybody's seen it, but this angle I think shows it the best from the middle of turns 3 and 4, a fan's perspective. Caleb Matthew on Twitter, shout out to him for the clip. But yeah, you can see Chastain just he flies through that turn, and I'm surprised. I mean, I don't think with any previous generation of a NASCAR Cup car, I don't think that the car would have held up through that turn like that, like the next gen did. I mean, Dylan, the pictures of the car after the race, the car honestly didn't look that bad. I know it was probably a lot more damage underneath and parts broken, but I mean the car wasn't just shredded by any means.
Yeah, I mean, I think the next gen made it possible. I mean, the car was totaled underneath, like you just said. Like you said, the brakes went out. He had no steering, nothing. But I mean, the damage on the side of the car, it was pretty much just the wrap and a little bit of scrape. So car held up pretty good. I mean, the car is a brick, so it's really not surprising me. I mean, it's been pretty durable in terms of the damage shown. So, but it just crazy. I kind of want to get into the opinion part of it. Some people are for it, some people are against it. Just want to hear your take, and then I'll give mine.
Yeah, so I mean, this is very definitely a very tricky subject. I think in NASCAR, I think, like you said, I think the majority of people approve of this move and they think it was fine and they think it's good for the sport. I personally think that the move itself that Ross made, I think it's 100% valid. I think that there's no rule in the rule book that says he can't do that. I think he took advantage of it, and obviously he's smart for doing it. I mean, he passed four or five cars in one turn to advance to the championship round. Now, the reason I don't like this move is because I honestly feel like it diminishes some of the quality of racing that we see in NASCAR in the sport. And this is nothing new in my opinion. I think that the quality of racing has gone down over recent years. I think part of that is due to the playoff system. We would never see a move like that made if it wasn't for the playoff system. In a normal situation, normal championship, Ross Chastain probably wouldn't even be in the running for the championship going into in that Martinsville race going into Phoenix if we were talking either the chase format before the playoffs or the a format before that where there was just straight up season long points. So I think that the playoffs ruin the quality of racing, and you see moves like that. But for Ross to do it, I think it's 100% within the rule book. There's nothing in the rule book that says he can't do that. But I think that NASCAR does need to take a look at things and potentially make it so guys can't do this moving forward, because I don't think that we want to see guys at Martinsville every single time we go to that track running in the turn trying to do the Ross Chastain move, or even at other tracks. I think there are some safety concerns here with this. Ross Chastain did take his hands completely off the steering wheel going into the turn and rode the wall. So I think this particular scenario, nobody got hurt. Ross didn't hit anybody. There was no harm, no foul. But I think in the future, this isn't a really good look for NASCAR. The last thing I'll say about it is I talked to some friends of mine that don't really watch NASCAR. They're not fans of the sport in any way. This incident just it blew up on social media. Everybody was seeing it. I saw it was on Barstool Sports. So one of my buddies he sent me the video and was kind of like asking me about it. He was like, "What is this like? What is this all about? Whatever." And he knows I'm a fan of NASCAR and racing in general, but I kind of asked like what was his opinion on it, and he said that he thought it was really he thought it was an insane move, but at the same time he thought it looked kind of sloppy. And in my opinion, that's I think the best way to put it. It looks sloppy on the sport, but it was a good move, and at the end of the day, Ross advanced to the final four.
Yeah, I mean, my point of view on it, I'm kind of for it. He didn't wreck anyone. He didn't bring caution out. He didn't cut the track. At the end of the day, all he did was total his car. He needed, I think it was 2 points where he was to get past Hamlin, I believe. He could have just went in, dumped the guys in front of him. We've seen that before. NASCAR allows drivers to intentionally wreck people to advance in the playoffs, go for a win. We saw it in the Xfinity. I mean,
Yeah.
Ty Gibbs just straight up buried his teammate to get that win. So, um, I think if NASCAR, wanted to outlaw a move like this, I don't see why. I mean, we said it before. I mean, it's one of the greatest moves in history of the sport. Everyone watching was hyped. They were cheering for it. I'm not like a huge Chastain fan. I mean, he had some arguable moves earlier in the season, but I mean, he kind of gained some respect for me on Sunday doing that move. I mean, there were some people making comments on it, drivers, saying they're not for it and so on and so forth. Hamlin was directly the victim for it. I mean, his crew chief, he said no rule or no sporting issue with that. It's a tool in the kit. So I mean, you look at a guy, Gapehart and Hamlin. I mean, they weren't going severely against it. They were basically saying it was fair game. It sucks they were the victims of it. But I mean, they pretty much said it's fair game. There's a ton of people there for it. It's gained nationwide attention. I mean, it was on SportsCenter top 10 number one last night, which I think was pretty insane. Um, the other thing I think that makes it so special is not only did he pull it off pretty much flawlessly, in the top tier forms of motorsports, this is really NASCAR is the only one you can do that. You can't do that in IndyCar F1 because it's open wheel. So I think that's another thing that makes it pretty unique. NASCAR is really the only thing you can do that. And if guys do this in the future, it's not a guarantee that they'll pull it off. I mean, Chastain, he threw it out there, he pulled it off, he risked it. He risked any safety concerns for himself. You bring up the catch gate being open, anything like that. But at the end of the day, I know you got to kind of take precautions for safety, but I mean, he didn't really do anything wrong. He didn't really put anyone in position. He was all the way on the outside lane where nobody was. The only contact he made was with the wall and that tiny little bump that he had with Keselowski there at the finish line. So I don't know. You can't really pass really well with these cars in the next gen. We've seen that as pretty much between qualifying and pit road this year. It's not often you see guys in the back of the pack and they make their way up really quick, at least in comparison to previous years. Um, so, I mean, to make a move like this, I think it's completely clean. It should be allowed. I think it's better than dumping someone or, making a bump and run and potentially ruining someone else's day. So, if no one else was, impacted in the, sequence of riding the wall, then I think it's fair game.
Yeah, and to be 100% clear, I don't disapprove of the move by Chastain doing it. I just think that NASCAR needs to take a look at it, and for the future, I think from a safety aspect, the drivers, they're going to go all out and they're going to do this as much as they can. I know we're going to get to Kyle Larson's, take on this in a little bit here, but I think the drivers, even the ones that say, "Oh, it was not a good move" or whatever, those guys, if it comes down to it, if it comes down to winning the race, any driver in the field is going to try and make that move. They're going to, put it all out, and they're going to try. If they know now everybody knows. So Martinsville next year, everybody knows that this is possible, and if NASCAR allows it, guys are going to try it again. And from a safety aspect, I think that the drivers, when they're in the car, they are not as worried about safety as they are when they're outside of the car talking about it in interviews. So I think in a way, NASCAR needs to take a look at this from a safety perspective and say, okay, how can do we need to protect the drivers from themselves? Because at the end of the day, these drivers, they're going to go out there and do whatever it takes to win. They don't care about wrecking. They're going to put it all on the line. And I think this move, in some ways, if you're running, if you're Hamlin and you're out of the playoffs from this move, it does feel a little bit cheap. It does, because it's like, man, it's like I've raced the normal way all day, and then this guy comes into 3 and 4 and passes 5 cars at once doing this insane move around the wall, and it's like we said, it's not something that we see every day, so there's gonna be differing opinions about it, but hats off to Ross Chastain, and like I said, he's gonna go compete for a championship next week, and Denny Hamlin's not. So you know,
Yeah, I mean, just thinking outside the box, I think in comparison, it's something like, seeing an insane like lateral play in football, like something like that it's not common. It's so
right?
uncommon, it doesn't happen. So, to think outside of the box like that, to just instantly think, okay, I need these spots. I can't make it up in time. I'm just gonna send it into the wall, go fifth gear, which no other driver, by the way, went in fifth gear. He just wide open fifth gear, just sent it on the wall. And I mean, it was quick thinking and he executed. So, congrats to him and made it into the final four. I saw one stat, it said the final four drivers, they actually all averaged, they were all top four in average finishes this year in the Cup season. So, um, I mean, I think the playoff drivers that are in, it's deserved.
Yeah,
Christopher Bell, he's been insane all year. I mean, he had a walk off at Roval, walk off at Martinsville yesterday. So, congrats to him. He's a good driver. Even though he's Joe Gibbs, I kind of pull for him from time to time. He's a good driver.
yeah, no, Christopher Bell, awesome job locking into the race, locking into Phoenix. He had to win, and like you said, Roval, and then yesterday at Martinsville, he did it again, back to back times. He's had a lot of bad luck throughout the playoffs. That's really taken him out of some races where he should. I think he would have probably raced his way in without the wins if it wasn't for all the crazy incidents and bad luck that he's had throughout. I mean, he was involved in the Kyle Larson and Bubba Wallace thing. I mean, it's just like, what is he supposed to do in that one? It's so Christopher Bell, he's going to be racing for a championship. Like Chastain's going to be out there too. Chase Elliott and Joey Logano, and like you said, those four guys. Honestly, you can make an argument for all four of them. They've all been very strong throughout the season in different points. Chastain's kind of picked back up here in these last couple weeks. He had, prior to Martinsville, he finished second 2 weeks in a row. So he's kind of hot coming in. And I think, Chase, he had a good race at Martinsville, but he doesn't look as strong as some of those other guys that are going to be out there. I mean, I think Christopher Bell is going to be really hard to beat there at Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean Chase, he's kind of had a lackluster playoffs. Everyone, he's had the strongest regular season champion. Everyone was kind of pointing at him to, kind of clean up in the playoffs. But I mean, there was a point yesterday. I mean, he could have been eliminated if Hamlin was higher up and Chastain, he made it. So that's pretty crazy. Similar to last year when Larson, I mean, he could have got eliminated at Roval. So it proves with this format, the top guy, you're not safe at all. So yeah, I mean, going into Phoenix, I think Bell, like you said, I agree with that. Chastain, I mean, who knows? He's heading in with tons of momentum, obviously tons of confidence. every fan, even new fans, are kind of cheering him on after that move at Martinsville. So who knows what he will do at Phoenix. I want to see Hendrick win, but I kind of pulling for Chastain a little bit after that move. It just got me so hyped. Wouldn't hate to see him win it, but my pick's probably Bell to win it. He's just been really fast.
Absolutely. I think you like I said, you can make an argument for all four guys why they could win the championship. And I think for me, I think my pick is probably Christopher Bell to win too, just because of the momentum and how strong that team has been. And like being able to drive up through the pack like that in Martinsville, he didn't really qualify that good, and he was able to come through there and end up winning that race. And that takes a whole team effort. The pit crew being flawless all day, and him just making the right moves and being clean, staying out of trouble. And it's gonna probably be a race at Phoenix where it's gonna be when you're raised. I mean, it's gonna be those four playoff guys like we see every single year, but I think it's gonna be even more competitive than what we've seen in recent years, where it's not just gonna be the four playoff guys up there in the front. There's gonna be other drivers up there too that are gonna be competing for the win that don't care about the playoffs. And I think Bell's done the best job of kind of just being able to clutch up out of the four guys that are in it. So we'll kind of go shift over to Kyle Larson now. We'll look at his quote from yesterday, and he was interviewed after the race, kind of asked about Ross Chastain's video game move and whether he inspired the move or not, or whether he thinks he inspired the move. Kyle said yeah, and he kind of said he's a bit embarrassed about it because that move that he made was embarrassing, and he said it's not a good look for our sport at all. Dylan, I know this seems like uh, a little hypocritical coming out of Kyle Larson. I think what Kyle was trying to say in this interview was that for fans that not people that are new fans in NASCAR, or people that are outside of NASCAR looking in, I think he just means it's not a good look for the sport because this incident or this move doesn't embody like what NASCAR is on a weekly basis. I think he just means that it's bad for the sport because this is what people are going to expect. If this move draws in new fans, like you said, it was Sports Center top 10. It was number 1 yesterday. If somebody that watches that says, "Hey, maybe I want to come watch NASCAR next week," and they turn on the Phoenix race, it's going to be a rude awakening for them, Dylan. It's really going to be a rude awakening because if Martinsville wasn't the most boring race of the year, and Martinsville was better this time around, I will say it was a lot better than it was in the spring. But if we get to Phoenix next week and new fans come and watch the sport and expect to see stuff like that, they're not going to see it. It's going to be one of the most boring races of the year. I hope that it's not boring, but with the way this car has been, I think it's going to be a boring race, and I think that's what Kyle was referring to as he doesn't want to get. I don't think that we want to give fans or incoming fans a false impression of what the sport is and what it embodies.
Yeah, well, first off, you tweeted about it. I thought it was kind of odd that, you know, Larson, he finished second. NBC didn't even interview him.
Yeah,
That interview was from Front Stretch, their a racing media site. They got that interview. I thought that was pretty weird it's kind of rare to not interview, I guess because of all the Chastain things that happened. But yeah, for Kyle, I mean, he kind of, most would say inspired. He tried that at Darlington, like we talked about earlier. Um, yeah, I mean, the product of racing, it just hasn't been good this year. I think that's why everyone is also so hype about it. I mean, it's the most exciting thing.
yeah,
I mean, we've seen in probably ever. So for it to happen in this season where, there hasn't been a ton of exciting moments that have happened. So for it to happen this year, it just made it that much better. Future, I don't think this is going to happen that much. Like I said earlier, I don't see it happening too much. Um, at least in the spring Martinsville race, I don't think we'll see it. Who knows if we see it in the fall Martinsville race? That might be when we start to, maybe go down and start implementing some type of rule. You don't want to see guys doing this on a week to week basis. It's
right.
kind of a rare thing. If you can execute it, if you're willing to put that risk at stake, then go ahead, all in line, do it. But if it's happening all the time, which I don't think it will, then we might want to look at it. But other than that, I think it's all good for the sport, bringing new fans. The only thing that's not good is we got so much publicity from this and attention. I mean, there's like 6, 7 million views on the NBC clip of it on Twitter. Um, it's not looking too good as far as changing this playoff format because NASCAR, they're all about ratings. They love all the ratings and attention. So, um, probably not too good as far as the playoff format goes because they see these ratings and be like, oh my God, if we change this playoff format, we're not going to have anything like this ever happen again.
Right.
So, that is one kind of negative I would say from this. But other than that, I mean, love to see it.
Yeah. So, kind of going now to Kyle Larson's day at Martinsville outside of the interview and the Chastain stuff. Pretty good day for Kyle Larson. He started on the pole. Kind of a surprise there. We didn't really expect him to be able to do that. Obviously, we know he's capable of doing it. It's Kyle Larson, but qualifying on the pole, kind of was surprised. I think Kyle was surprised about it too. Fast race car all day, kind of kept it up in the top five. Haven't really seen that type of race from Kyle at Martinsville throughout his career, and ended up finishing second. Had a chance to win there at the end, and overall, I think really can't ask for more. The pit crew did an awesome job all day. I mean, every single stop you looked at, they gained at least one spot. And then the final stop of the day, they put him out there. We took two tires, and they came off first on pit road, and really put him in a spot where he could win that race. Kind of just struggled to get going on the start there and get by Briscoe and Custer, but I think if he could have cleared them, he might have been in a position to win, Dylan.
Yeah, I think the only like I guess you could say questionable thing. I don't remember if it was stage 2 or 3, correct me, but when he shows the second row instead of the outside in row one, I forget what stage that was. That he
Yeah,
ended up being on the second row inside. He lost a lot of spots. I think he was like after that lap or two, finished. He was sitting around fifth or sixth, and then from there, hard to pass, hard to get back up there, but he eventually made his way through at the end of the race. Christopher Bell, he plowed through. I mean, I thought Larson was kind of get a run there, but there's a lot of bunches of guys just trying to make moves there. Last few laps, I mean, that's expected. But um, at one point, he thought he had a speeding penalty. So, I mean, Martinsville staple, you have the Martinsville hot dog, and you have Kyle Larson speeding penalties on pit road. So, I thought that was going to be the third year in a row. Thankfully, he wasn't speeding. What was it? Was it the spring race or last year? He had two pit road speeding penalties.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just
I
insane.
know. I know. I don't think he had any this year, but or maybe he did have one. I don't know. But the year before, I know the playoff race he had speeding penalty. I think that took him out of contention in that one, and then in the spring, I think he had like two. So, um, but yeah, no speeding penalty this week, so that was good. And second place finish, I think, career best at Martinsville for Kyle. And Cliff Daniels kind of said on the radio after the race, he said, "Kyle, we're going to turn you into a Martinsville racer." And that, I mean, I think that is the truth. Kyle seems to improve every time he comes to that track, and I know Kyle hates going there, but at the same time, it's with if the schedule stays the same for years to come, that's going to be an important race every single year. So the better he gets, and if he's in the position to make it to the final four, that's going to be a good race to a good racetrack to be good at for Kyle Larson. Um, some some other things. William Byron eliminated from the playoffs. We talked about it, how important qualifying was going to be. Christopher Bell was able to drive his way up through the field, but William Byron was really not able to. I think he ended up finishing seventh or eighth at the end of the day. That's kind of the highest he really got. But he was back in the 20s all day. He was a lap down at one point. Just really, really frustrating day for that team. And I knew from after qualifying, I was like, this is not looking good for them because, Hamlin, he had a really fast car, and that's kind of the guy he was battling with for the final spot until Chastain made his move.
Yeah, we talked about last week who were going to be the guys to watch, and we both said Byron and Hamlin were going to be the two cars. Hamlin showed to be the fastest for most of the race. Byron, like you said, a lap down. I think it was stage one. He got passed and he finished a lap down, and then he got back on the lead lap, started two, but didn't expect that from him. A lot of guys in the back I wasn't expecting. Like Kyle Busch, I mean,
Yeah, I
he
don't.
was what 5 laps down or something, and like no incidents or anything. I think his car was just all types of screwed up, and there's a bunch of people saying, you know, end of JGR, is he getting just bad engines, just like bottom of the line? Is it mixed with him not caring? Who knows? But that's just crazy to see. One of the best drivers in NASCAR history. I mean, 5 laps down, just awful. I mean, NASCAR, I think they said that he had to pick up the speed or he had to get off the track, and it was pretty crazy to see there.
Yeah, at one point I was listening to Kyle's radio the entire race, and at one point I think it was under caution or maybe it was under green. Kyle came on the radio and I think he asked, he was like, "Is like Kyle Busch is having fun today, isn't he?" or something like that. He was just like joking around with Cliff. I don't remember what Cliff said back, but yeah, I think everybody saw it. It was kind of odd that Kyle Busch was, just cruising around there, 5 laps down early in the race, but so we look at the final four for the driver's side. We got Logano, Bell, Elliott, and Chastain. And then in the owner's four, it's Logano, Bell, Chastain, and Larson. Elliott's not competing for a owner's championship, and Larson's not competing for a driver's championship. Hendrick Motorsports can still win an owner's championship and a driver's championship if it's like a Larson Elliott 1-2. That would be very
Yeah,
interesting to see. You said Bell is your pick for the drivers four. I think, in my opinion, in the owners four, I mean, do you think Larson has a chance to go back to back in the owners championship?
I mean, he's been strong at Phoenix, obviously, but Phoenix is again the track worse with next gen. But I mean, even in prior years, Phoenix is a track where you have to have a great pit road, plays. I mean, it's all about position there. It's a position race. Championship last year, Larson thought it was over for him. Had a legendary pit stop, pit crew, got him off, sent him off, and he got in front, got the championship. So it's all about position at Phoenix. Name of the game, qualify well, flawless on pit road, and you're up front.
So in the spring, Kyle unfortunately had engine issues and finished at 34th on the day after coming off the night before winning at the Tulare Thunder Bowl with the World of Outlaws NOS Energy Drink Sprint cars. Hopefully, I mean before his car had issues, he looked like he had speed in that race. So I think going into this race, you can't count Kyle out, and they're gonna try and fight tooth and nail for this owners championship. Who knows? People might try another video game move this week here at Phoenix. I mean, after last week, I'm like, I don't know, man. Maybe somebody will try it at Phoenix. You never know.
Could you imagine if Chastain tried to pull it off?
Again.
Like he's like, yeah. Could you imagine like it's Chastain like top three and another Final Four drivers in front of him, and he just sends it. Yeah, I mean it depends on the track. I mean I think there's certain tracks where it could work. I think people were saying that Phoenix is a track where maybe it could work if you do it right, but there's a lot of risk involved whether or not you can execute it at all. So that's just something we'll have to see.
So the NASCAR season obviously is coming to a close, but I'm sure for Kyle Larson, the racing on dirt will pick right back up after the season. We don't have anything confirmed for Kyle this week on dirt. I know a lot of people are asking if he's going to be at World Finals with the World of Outlaws this week. I don't think he's going to be there. I know he's not going to be there in the late model, and I'm pretty sure he's not going to be there in the sprint car. The Millbridge Micro stuff that's happening tonight and Tuesday night, the $10,000 to win race. He, as I most recently checked, Kyle was not on the entry list for that event, so I don't expect him to be there for that. But if he is, we'll post about it, and just follow all of our socials, stay up to date like usual, and we will always post where Kyle racing and when it's all going down. So last thing, hopefully in the next couple weeks we'll have a special guest on the podcast. We kind of have some stuff in the works, so stay tuned for more information on that. And Dylan, if you don't have anything else, I think that's all we got for today's show.
That should pretty much wrap it up. Thanks everyone for the support. Leave your comments below if you're on YouTube. Your comments on the Chastain situation. Would love to hear everyone's opinions. These past few weeks, there's been a lot of stuff. We had the Bubba and Larson stuff, a lot of controversial stuff there. Even going to Homestead, you had that little scuffle in pit road with Truex, and then now we have the Chastain thing. So these playoffs have been pretty exciting so far. Lots of things to talk about. So like I said, everyone leave your opinions below on the thing, and thanks for the support once again, and we'll see y'all next week.
Yep. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's show. We'll be back again next week to recap all of the weekend's racing from Phoenix as the NASCAR Cup Series season comes to a close and Kyle Larson and the 5 team look to go back to back with owners' championships. If you're watching this on YouTube, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please follow our podcast so you don't miss a thing. Have a great rest of the week, everyone, and we will see you in the next episode.